Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to CCIE Labs Uncensored with James Haddix. Today we're going to be going over spanning tree convergence timers. Yes, we are continuing our journey through spanning tree. And I want to preface this lab with telling everybody that we are going to be focusing only on regular old spanning tree. The IEEE standard, just the regular spanning tree, the one that can be used across all different vendor types. Rapid spanning tree, multiple spanning tree, common spanning tree. We're not going to be getting into the timers for that, so just remember that this is only for regular spanning tree. So we're going to go over a couple things in spanning tree convergence timers. We're going to go over the hello time, the forward time, the max age, and something that you might have already seen these three, but something that you might not have ever heard of is called the diameter. So we're gonna first I'm gonna give you a quick explanation of each of these convergence timers. The commands to do all of these is fairly straightforward. So there's really not much lab or CLI behind this, but there is a lot of concepts that you really do need to know. So the hello time right here is simply a one switch asking another switch, hey, what's going on? It's sort of the delay. It's sort of the break in between how many times switch one. So let's go ahead and bring up our canvas here, and we've got two switches. So essentially, the time between. Let me just see if I can. Here we go. So we have switch one and switch two, and the hello time is essentially every couple of seconds, switch one sends a BPDU. So let me see if I can find my arrow here. That's not going the right direction, is it? So, that might be why. You need to get this arrow. So every 2 seconds, you get a hello timer that comes across the wire to switch 2. And this would actually occur over switch one's designated port, or switch 2's, switch one's, let's get the circle. All these shapes, they get a little bit confusing once in a while. So here, this is called the designated switch. Of course, on a root bridge, all of them are designated. And then on switch 2, this would be on the root port. So every 2 seconds, a hello packet is sent across just to say, hey, you know what, I'm here, how you doing? So that's it. Pretty simple. Nothing really too complex about that. And of course that is the default that is set. Then the second timer we're going to go over is the forwarding timer. So the forwarding timer is when a port, so let's say that this port right here goes into a couple of states. So when there's a convergence or there's a new topology, a TCN that comes across the wire, a port will do a couple of things. Before it starts actually forwarding packets, it will do listening. Give me 1 second, sorry here. It'll do learning and listening. So again, this is only in regular spanning tree. In other versions of spanning tree, there's only 3 states. So in the newer versions, a couple of these states are combined, and it's called discarding. So in learning and listening, this is a timer that is set by the forwarding time. So essentially, that is how long is it going to take for this to actually go through? And technically, it's not forwarding time; it's forward delay. Sorry, just realized that. That's why it's uncensored here. So this timer is set to a default of 15 seconds. So for 15 seconds, so we're going to have 15 seconds in learning and 15 seconds in listening. So that means that it's almost going to be half of a minute for a switch to go through and go through the setting, go through the TCN, kind of think about everything, ingest it, and then it'll go to forwarding. So why do we have, for 15 seconds for each of those states, Why is that? I mean, that seems kind of big, doesn't it? Well, again, and I think I might have mentioned it before, but these timers can be adjusted, but obviously the lower that you set these timers, the more sensitive you make your network to changes, which is great in terms of, you know, trying to make sure that applications always stay connected. But the problem is that it floods the it floods the LAN with STP overhead, and you don't necessarily want to do that. So in a lot of these default numbers, they've actually come about through, you know, thousands and thousands of hours of studying spanning tree and doing simulations in lab and stuff. So these are actually dictated by the spanning tree protocol IEEE standard sheet. So they'll actually have these listed. So again, these are not Cisco specific settings. These are actually set across all the different switches for everything, for all the different vendors. So, that's the forwarding delay. And then the last one is called the max age. The max age is essentially how long it keeps information about a PDU. And the max age, it's not just simply a number that you take into consideration, but there's actually a formula that goes into it. So we'll go ahead and do a new switch here, or we'll do a new topology here. So let's say we've got switch 1, we have switch 2, switch 3, switch 4, switch 5, switch 6, and let's say we have switch 7 over here. So let's go ahead and draw our perfectly configured switch links. So what max age does is that it takes the value. So let's say it's 20. So what ends up happening here is, let's say that the root one, and again we're gonna pretend like, you know, traffic kind of flows down here, so everything flows down this way. So let's say that for switch 1, that's switch 1, switch 2, 3, yikes, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hey, that's not a bad 7. So what ends up happening is that it keeps this information for BPDUs that are being sent across the wire, and the max age is for how long it keeps that information. So the default is 20 seconds. And what ends up happening is that, so say at root 1, so let's just say here at the root that the max age is set to 20. Well, what ends up happening is that that is set across the rest of the wire, but the time isn't necessarily 20 for the rest of the switches downstream. So what ends up happening is, say that 1 sends an update to 3. And what 3 does is it takes a look at that information. It's like, oh, the max age for this is 20 seconds, but it traversed 1 link or 1 hop. So now it's 20. Sorry, I cannot paint today. Minus 1. So now that's 19. And then let's say from 3 to 6, we go down here. It's like the max age is 20, but it went across 2 links. So now that's 20 minus 2. And then it would be 18. And then when it gets down all the way to 7, it's going to see that the max age was 20, but now it's going to cross 3 hops. So that's 17. The other way you can think about it is that from 20 it just turns into 19, and then from between like switch 3 and switch 6, it will go from 19 minus 1, you get 18. So it's the same concept. So that's how this goes. Now you'll take a look at this and you kind of realize, like, wow, you know, this is something you really have to consider with your topology. And that's where this term comes in, diameter. So Cisco suggests that these are the only settings that you should ever configure or customize for spanning tree. There are actually a lot of different other values or a lot of different other specifications that you can use for spanning tree. There's a bridge transmit delay. You can actually put in a delay for a BPDU. You can actually put in a halt delay for transmitting. I mean, there's a lot of, I think there's maybe 4 or 5 other ones, but those ones you typically never want to mess with. The only time they should ever even be customized is typically if you're on the phone with TAC and there's some special case that you have to think of. So, hello time, forward delay, max age. Diameter. What is diameter? Diameter is a setting in which basically you could probably think of this as max distance or max hops. And you might not even want to use the term hops because that's typically reserved for layer 3. So we'll just say max. I'm trying to think. Maximum of switches in between. So the diameter isn't measured from the root down to any switch. It's measured from any switch across to any other switch. So let's show you really easy what it is. So let's say, for example, that I have a IP phone here and I have an IP phone over here. Okay, and I've got numerous switches that I have to go through. So let's just put a couple of switches here. You know, not every switch is the same. Some are big, some are small. But obviously you can see there are a lot of switches. So what the diameter field specifies is the maximum amount of switches that should be between any 2 endpoints. Now the default for this is 7. So that means that the maximum number that can go through is 7 for one instance of spanning tree. Let me repeat that. The diameter setting, write this down here. This setting relates to the spanning tree instance only. So you can have multiple, we can have multiple, what you call it. Let me see if I can draw this. Which one do I want to pick? Let's do a circle. You can have multiple spanning tree instances, but in only one instance you can have a maximum amount of 7. So here, in this one instance, you can go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 3 to 4 to 5, and then this can go out. So, and then if you notice here, I'm just going to kind of cross this out. So as you see here, this configuration would actually be sufficient for the requirement of the diameter setting. But if we did this, let's say that all of these switches are in one huge, whoa, that's a line, one big domain, one big huge spanning tree domain, then we couldn't hop across a lot of these switches. We would have to do, kind of a quick pass. So we'd go from here, that's 1, to 2, to 3, let's go 4, 5, let's do 6, and then 7, and that goes across. So that would actually work, but that would be the longest sort of path that we could take. And the reason, and if you think about it, the reason why is because if you think about the diameter, when you're going across and you're sending a lot of these BPDU messages across, that means that there's going to be a lot of traffic being sent across, and just it's not a very well designed network. So again, default is 7. And what Cisco does suggest, and here's the other part. So the diameter setting of 7 actually predetermines what these 3 are. So this setting relates to spanning tree only, and also determines settings for the other 3 timers. Now there's more than 3 timers, but these are the only ones that we're concerned about. So Cisco does suggest that if there's a case where you might need more, or you might need to change the hello timers and the forward delay and the max age, they suggest that you actually change this setting here. So, but we're just going to go into the CLI and I'll just show you how to make some of the changes here. Like I said, it's nothing that's really too difficult, but another thing you can tell is when you do a show spanning tree VLAN, it will actually give you the hello time. So, and it'll give you the bridge ID. So kind of keep an eye on this, but let's say to switch 3. And let's show spanning tree VLAN 1 for that. So, and you'll notice here that the root bridge, the cost is for hello timer, max age 20 seconds, forward delay, max age 20 seconds, forward delay. So, now what I'd like to do, actually I don't think it's going to work because all of these are directly connected, so you're not going to see the 19, I think. But, alright, so let's just say that we want to change the hello time. To do that, we would go to the config terminal for the root bridge. We cannot do this on any other bridge, or we can only do it on the root. So we would do spanning tree, and I believe for all VLANs, we would do it like this, and then we do hello time, and we're going to do, let's just make it 3. So, and then we will show spanning tree, and you'll notice that it's changed. And then what we should also see is that this information should be propagated to the rest of the switches. So we'll just go to switch 3 again, and you'll notice now that the hello timer is set to 3 on the root. So now let's say, for example, we want to change the forward delay. So we'll just go back to spanning tree VLAN, and again, it can be specific for different VLANs, because remember, in regular old spanning tree, one VLAN gets its own settings, or one root. So we'll do forward delay. Now let's just say that we want the forward delay to be only 20 seconds total. So that means we would need to set it to 10 seconds. And I think I might have did that wrong. So is it forward delay, I think? Oh, it's just forward. So we'll do 10. And that's it. And then we should see the So we should see the forward delay now come across. For VLAN 1. And now what we'd like to do is sorry, I'm just checking something real quick. All right, sorry about that. There was some issues on my virtual machine, so I actually had to end up pausing the configure. We actually ended up having to pause the training real quick. One thing I did want to go over is this. So we looked at the spanning tree, and we've made changes on the hello time and the cost and everything. So this is coming from switch 3. You notice that the root ID's parameters are different than the bridge ID parameters. So what are you looking at? Well, essentially, since the root has these specific timers, this is actually the configuration that switch 3 would have. If switch 3 became the root bridge, then it would actually follow these timers. So when planning your network, you have to make sure that your backup, or you have to make sure that your succession of the root bridge, that these timers are configured correctly. So, And then the last configuration that we wanted to do, we'll just do max age. And again, that's pretty easy, sorry. Only do that from the root switch, remember. So we'll do spanning tree, max age, and we'll do, let's say 30 seconds. So now we should see that show up. So, and then we are also going to do the diameter as well. So let me see if I can remember. I don't think I've ever done, is it just right here? No, that's not correct. So let's see here. I think it's something that actually is configured on the global side, I think. So let me make sure here. I think the diameter setting is made there, and no, it's not. So I'm just gonna go to my handy dandy command guide. I think it's spanning tree. Is it maximum? No. To actually set it, let's try this. Let's do spanning tree VLAN 1, and then I think it's root. Let's try primary diameter. There it is. And let's go with six. So all right, so that's just how you would set the diameter, anywhere from 2 to 7 hops. Again, not really a configuration that we'd want to really mess with too much. But again, Cisco says that if you want to make major changes to your STP timers, that you would want to look at maybe doing some changes on the diameter setting. So that's pretty much it for spanning tree convergence timers. And our next lab is going to be pretty lengthy. We're going to go over the different customizations, such as port fast and BPDU guard. Again, all of this is going to be specific just to spanning tree itself, not to any different other flavors of spanning tree. So thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you next time.